Say again?
The plan that President Trump has for Israel and for the Palestinians
Yes,
has been made public.
has been made public. And by the way, the scripture that I was trying to find to go with that was Ecclesiasticus chapter 25 and 22 through to 24. All right, so you can make a note of that and you can read it in your own time. All right. Yes, ma'am. It has been made public. So, thoughts, anyone? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, we still have to wait and see what the Palestinians are going to do. So far, they're not agreeing.
No.
However, in the end, they will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because certain things have to happen, so they have no choice but to agree with it.
Right.
They may change it a little bit, but basically, that's it.
Right. Well, that's something that's worth us watching and seeing how that develops over the next couple of months to see how that emerges. Yourself, Sister Sue, you are next.
That's okay. I want to ask this question about the Genesis, back in Genesis 9.
Now you can go ahead, ask it.
Back where it says the evergreen tree.
Mm-hmm.
You said the tree refers to people.
Yes.
Is this referring to people
Yes.
here in Genesis?
Yes. Because who are the trees that are good for? Who are the trees that are good for that are pleasant to the eyes? Good. See, right? And who are the trees that were made for life? Huh? No.
Oh, made for life. I'm sorry.
Made for life. Yes. Because it's all speaking about us. You see. See.
Also in the midst of the garden.
Yeah. See, and
But down here where it says good and evil, the evil would refer to the evil.
other nations. Right. Because remember that there were three basic groups of people that were made in the beginning: sons of the wicked, sons of God, and sons of who?
Men.
Sons of men. So wicked was there from the get. But you see, in Christianity, you never taught that. You taught that everybody was good in the beginning, and everybody was naked, and everybody was white, and then all of a sudden we became black. And then the Mormon group said, "Oh, you're black because you are sinful and you are evil and all of that nonsense." You see, they turned the rhetoric to suit them, and never to suit us. All right, okay, and that's why. Remember, we as a people, we have developed self-hate. And we're so self-hate that we look in the mirror and we see our blackness, we don't like it.
Yeah, right.
And our Hispanic brethren, they wish their daughters to marry a white man.
They should.
They wish it. Because, I mean, I still have a poster at home. I don't put it up because I don't like it, but I have it for proof. Maybe I might get it printed up and brought out to camp. And on it, it shows this mother, this dark-skinned Negro-looking woman who is of Mexican, and she's putting her hands together and she's praying to the Father, and her daughter's holding a baby that is of mixed lineage, and she said, "Thank God you have broken the curse." That's how self-hate we are. That we think being black is a curse because we've been taught that.
Mm-hmm.
You remember in camp that Issachar's sister, the grandmother said, "I'm white."
Yeah.
She was telling us, "I'm white."
Yeah, we were at camp many years ago. We were in Dallas.
That's correct.
Was in Dallas, and whilst we were there, the children were telling us who they were, and they had no problem with it. But the grandmother said, "No, I'm white," and she was dark light.
The children had to correct
it, yeah.
And they corrected her. So it just shows that it's self-hate that exists among us. All right. Now, newsworthy. Did you hear about the plane that landed in the middle of Iran? A huge plane, 130 souls. Yeah, landed, and nobody died.
That's in Iraq.
And I was like, whoa, look at this. How is it that these things are happening almost daily where we're sitting? It's because these are the signs of the time. The signs of the time. And furthermore, let me give you an opportunity. Yes, you had.
Yeah, I heard about the Brexit, because the Brexit is going to affect a whole lot of people, and we don't know. We think it's just over there, but it's going to affect us.
Well, the Brexit situation is not so much about the Americas. It's more about Britain. And let me explain why. Britain right now has always had this snobbish mentality. Yes, this snobbish mentality that they believe that they're better off than everyone else because they're an island. And here's the thing, that Brexit is going to bring that country into chaos. And why is it going to bring it into chaos? Because they have now cut themselves off from the other countries that wanted to deal with them.
That's right.
And the so-called Brits, they've been jumping over into Europe, flying all over to these different parts, enjoying themselves and experiencing all the benefits of it. Now that they're out of it, they're not going to get it because the other nations are going to come against them.
That's right.
And what you're going to find that the Brits will feel is that when they go into Europe, they're going to notice that the attitude that was towards them before of kindness has now turned to hatred.
Right.
Why is that so important? Because that's the beginning of the destruction that Most High is going to bring upon that nation.
Sure.
Because they're going to go through what America's going to go through as well. You see, and the same thing is going to happen. That's going to cause America to be hated by the world as well down the road. But that's a situation that we need to wait and see how that develops.
Yeah, that's what they said. They're gonna try and move closer to America. They said.
Yeah. They're going to try, but it's not going to come to any avail. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, current event. About a month ago, they had an earthquake in Puerto Rico, and they kept feeling tremor after tremor after
Right.
tremor. And most recently, there was one that affected Jamaica.
Correct.
And it was felt as far as Miami.
Correct. The earthquake that took place was a 7.7, one of the largest that they have felt in many, many years. And they said the only reason why it has not caused some of the devastation it could have caused is because it was out in the sea. But anyhow, it was on land, it would have completely, it was too strong of an earthquake for any country to have withstood. That's the type that takes an island under the sea. You see? So the Most High set it up that Cuba felt it, Miami felt it, Jamaica felt it, and a couple of the other islands felt it as well. Again, this is the signs of the times. And here's the naivety of us, Israel, is that these things are happening and we're still casually ambling along, not realizing He's showing you, I'm coming. And you see, what we misunderstand, the scripture says that He will speak. Now, He's not going to speak as in a voice coming out of heaven. He's not going to do that. This is how He's speaking. The disease that's breaking out right now in China, you know, how can you eat rats, bats, and all of those things and think at some point the Most High is not going to say, I'm going to now cause you to drop dead where you are. How can you do that? It is mind-blowing. You're going to suffer the consequences of your actions. So all those things we're seeing now, we're experiencing them. Any other? Yes.
When I read about that earthquake, I thought about its location and the fact that, you know, Andrea's fault, what they call it, fault, is running through California.
Yes.
And it has been predicted for years that a good earthquake is going to take half of California into
Correct.
the ocean.
Correct.
And I said, this is a setup for that to happen.
Correct.
Because it's happening in the ocean. It's stirring it up
Yeah.
underneath.
Yeah, the San Andreas Fault. Yeah, all of that's going to happen. And again, can you imagine when the Most High comes? those things are going to just crack open. I mean, remember one of the traditions when a king comes is that there has to be a great
Preparation.
there's a term that I'm looking for. Let me give you when Yahushua first was coming on the scene. John the Baptist was his forerunner. So what was John the Baptist's job? John the Baptist's job was to go and to shake the people, to wake the people, to disturb the people, to make the people feel uncomfortable, and that was the presentation to introduce him. Now, all these things are going to happen, and they're going to happen even in a worse case, because it's going to present him as he comes through. Is going to be mayhem. So it's a presentation of Yahushua coming back. And we're going to see this. Some of us in here will see it. Some of us may not. But for the most part, remember the prophets of old, they were looking forward to seeing it. But it was not in their time. Scripture says, or Yahushua said, in the last days. And when he came, he was in the last days. And that was 2,000 years ago, roughly. And so we're in that ending period. Can't? All right. Let's get into the lesson today. The lesson we're going to be dealing with is entitled, I will bless them that bless thee and curse them that curse thee. All right. We're going to begin, if you please, by going to the book of Genesis chapter 12 and 1. Let's go. Genesis chapter 12 and 1. And when you're there, say I'm there. Now, again, if I happen to be going too quickly for you, all I need you to do is just to take a pen, just hold your hand up like this, and I will see, and go from there. All right, let's go. Let's read Genesis chapter 12 and verse 1. Let's read.
It's the book of Genesis, chapter 12 and verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country,
Read.
and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee.
Go on.
And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee.
All right. Now, why did the Most High want Abraham to leave his kindred, leave his father's house? Why was that? By show of hands, don't just shout it out. Why was it? These are basic questions that we must know. Why? All right, Wendell.
His family was idolatrous.
His family, they were idolatrous. They worship idols. In fact, the family business was idol making. Now remember what we just read, that a person who makes idols is cursed. Let's go back to that scripture. In Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14, can somebody find it and tell me? Tell me what the verse is. I won't tell you where that is. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14. Tell me what verse, and don't shout it out. To put your hand up. All right. Who has it? By show of hands. All right. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14, verse 8.
Verse 8. Indeed. Let's read, if you please.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14 and verse 8. But that which is made with hands is cursed.
Read.
As well as he that made it.
Read
because
on.
he made it, and it, because being corruptible, it was called God.
It was called God. So, what you find here is that Abram, as he was called then, his father was an idol maker, and he was cursed. And the Most High wanted to separate him, Abraham, from his father. wanted him to leave his father's house, to get out of there, because the Most High has chosen him. And in choosing him, he has to take him away from the thing that is influential. Most sons are influenced by their fathers. So when we read verse 1 again, because again, the scriptures is not there for us just to have entertainment, it's there to explain something to us. So when we read it, let's see what it's saying. Read 1 again, chapter 12 of Genesis, verse 1. Read.
Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee.
Unto a land that he was shown. So he had already picked the man, and he picked a particular seed, and he told him to get out because I have a place for you, I have a land for you. And then let's read verse 2.
Verse 2. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great.
See, so he's now saying, I'm going to make you a great nation, and thou shalt be a blessing. Read on.
And Salaki, and thou shalt be a blessing.
Read.
And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed.
Now that blessing that was put on Abraham, that went through to his seed line, his bloodline, has continued on. And even we who are the heirs of Abraham by way of Jacob, that blessing is on us. Come on. So watch it. He says he's going to bless them that bless him, and curse them that curse him, meaning even his seed. So when you think about all the people who have blessed you, they've been blessed. Now one would say, are you saying that the nations, they bless us, then they will be blessed? Yes. And if they curse us, guess what? They're going to be cursed. But let's take it a step further. Let's go to Revelations chapter 1. And let's read verse 3. Let's put it in order, shall we? Revelations 1 and 3. Now, again, I'm going to need you to be quick with your sword. All right? So, be a bit quicker in terms of how you turn your pages and find it. Go ahead and read, sir.
Revelations chapter 1 and verse 3.
Read.
Blessed is he that readeth.
Read it again.
Blessed is he that readeth.
Read.
And they that hear the words of this prophecy.
Hear the words of this prophecy. All right, hold that before we finish it. What I want you to do, I want you to go to Joel chapter 2 and 28 real quick. Joel chapter 2 and 28. Now, for those of you that aren't so swift with your sword at this point, just make a note of the scriptures so that you can follow it up later. And please do follow it up later and read it in conjunction. Come on? All right, let's go.
The book of Joel, chapter 2 and verse 28.
Read.
And it shall come to pass
Read.
afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy.
Shall prophesy. Now, we have to be clear when we use the word prophecy, because we're not speaking about the prophecy that we have been misled to believe that someone's going to go into a trance and start to prophesy the future. The prophecy speaking about is the prophecy of Yahushua, speaking about him. That's what it's speaking about. Drop that quickly, if you please, and go to Acts chapter 2 and 17. Acts chapter 2 and 17. Again, if you're slow with your sword, just write the notes down. Go over it again so that you can correlate it. We'll go from there. Let's go.
Acts chapter 2 and verse 17.
No. Yes, Salaki, go ahead.
And it shall come to pass.
It shall come to pass.
In the last days.
In what days?
In the last days,
Read.
saith God, I will pour out of my spirit upon all flesh.
Upon all flesh. So that's confirming what Joel said. Can't? Let's go back to Revelation chapter 1. Let's finish where we left off.
Revelations chapter 1 and verse 3. And they that hear the words of this prophecy and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand.
So you must read these prophecies. You must keep them. And you must write them down, for the time is at hand. Matthew chapter 5 and 3. Matthew chapter 5 and 3.
The book of Matthew chapter 5 and verse 3.
Let's read.
Blessed are the poor in spirit.
Blessed are what?
Blessed are the poor in spirit,
Read.
for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Now, when we read this, you have to tie it in with a precept. Otherwise, you're going to read it superficially, just from the surface, and there's more to it. So, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So let's give a precept to that to understand it. Let's go to Psalms 51. Don't lose Matthew, because we're coming back here. Psalms 51 and 17.
The book of Psalms, chapter 51 and verse 17.
Watch this now, read.
The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit.
The sacrifices of the Most High God is a broken spirit. It's a term that I swear my old pastor used to use it all the time. It's a broken and a contrite heart the Most High will not despise. But finish it for me, please.
Come. A broken and a contrite heart, O God, thou wilt not despise.
Will not despise it. So when you're brokenhearted, when you feel repentive, he won't despise that. That's why he's trying to teach us that we have to learn to be repentive. And that's some of the qualities that we don't have. And let me show you how that pours over. I'm expanding it just a little bit. It pours over into our personal life. If I do you something, I've got to learn to come to you and say, I'm sorry. You've got to learn to come to me and say, I'm sorry. That's humility. But we get so caught up and act like the nations that I don't have to apologize to him. That's wrong. That's not us.
That's right.
In marriages, you're meant to learn to apologize to your wife, and your wife apologize to you. You're meant to learn to do that. Because it says, a broken and a contrite heart, the Most High will not despise. Those are qualities you have to learn to have. But we're taught arrogance. I don't have to say nothing to her. I don't say nothing to that knucklehead. That's wrong. That's not what the scripture is teaching us, can't? So when we understand that now, it's taken us to new levels. All right, let's see if we can take this a step further. I want to go to Isaiah. Did you read all of 17, by the way?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go to Isaiah, chapter 51 and 50, 57 and 50. Yes. Isaiah 57 and 15, let's go.
It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 57 and verse 15.
Go ahead.
For thus saith the high and lofty one that inhabiteth eternity,
Watch it now, read.
whose name is holy.
Read.
I dwell in the high and holy place, with him also that is of a contrite and humble spirit.
See that? So if the Most High can have a contrite and a humble spirit, why can't we?
That's right.
Why can't we? All right. With that, go back to Matthew chapter 5 and let's read verse 4 now. Matthew chapter 5 and read verse 4.
Book of Matthew, chapter 5 and verse 4. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted.
For they shall be comforted. Now let's find the precept to that. All right. Let's go to truly messed that one up now, haven't I? Okay. Okay. Bear with me just for a quick moment. See, that's why I brought the big guns out.
That's right.
All right, so let me just bear with me just a moment. I old Bible here that's just never lets me down. It's got precepts like you would not believe. All right, so where were we now? Matthew chapter 1,
5 and 4.
5 and 4.
Yes, sir.
And let me give you the precept to that. Isaiah chapter 61 and 2. There it is.
It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 61 and verse 2.
See, I knew that was the Spirit telling me to take this thing today. I'm telling you.
All praise.
I would get stuck with that. All right. Go ahead, read, sir.
To proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord.
To do what?
To proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. And the day of vengeance of our God.
The day of what?
And the day of vengeance of our God. To comfort all that mourn.
To comfort all that mourn. All right. That's powerful. All right. Read on the next verse. Let's read verse 3.
Verse 3. To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion. To give unto them.
See, who's mourning in Zion right now?
Yes.
Right. And by the way, Zion is you.
That's
Do you know that you are Zion?
Yes.
You are Zion. And by the way, let me challenge you, Wendell. Let's challenge your mind. Who in Zion? Because obviously, when we speak about Zion, we're speaking about Israel to a certain degree. But the truth is, the word Zion is applicable to one particular group.
Judah.
Huh?
Judah.
Judah. Yeah. Why?
Because Judah was the one that got dispersed in 70 AD when we went to the destruction of the southern kingdom. We went down to from the time that we got sent around the world, we caught the most double hockey sticks. Because we did really badly, but we also got it the worst.
All right. Let's prove that. I'll come back to it later. Let's go to Psalm 76. Psalm 76 and 1. Now, this is a script that you'll find that most of the tribes don't like to use. And you know why? Because there is this attitude that we have. Well, I'm of the 12 tribes as well. So why is it that, Judah is meant to be up there? It's because Judah is. Judah is. I was just saying last night, right?
That's right.
You're right.
Why are we complaining about who's first and who's second? Brother, are you of the number? And the number is 12. Are you in that 12? If you're in the 12, be quiet and enjoy the ride here.
That's right.
Don't lose your mind. Oh, I want to be first. Get out of that schoolyard nonsense.
That's right.
Read what it says here.
It's the book of Psalm, chapter 76, verse 1.
Read.
In Judah is God known.
Hold it. Read it again.
In Judah is God known. His
Wow.
name is great in Israel.
In Israel. Go on.
In Salem also is his tabernacle and his dwelling place in Zion.
In Zion. What verse was that?
Verse 2.
2. So you see, it's letting you know in Psalm 76, 1 and 2, that Judah, you are held exaltably high. And that's why when you act like a knucklehead and not take this truth and run with it, and you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, behave yourself. You don't understand who you are?
God.
The prestige that's on you, Judah.
God.
Well, you say, oh, well, I wanted to be. No. Paul is Benjamin. Paul's not making that nonsense. Paul would be pushing because he knows that with the exalted one being in that tribe, that means he also is of the number. Yahweh is of the number. All right, you had a question, so let me hear what you said.
Just one thing to add to that. I don't know if this is correct or not, but I think that because Judah is in first position, they had to go through it the worst because gold is tried by fire.
And
praise
indeed, but remember this, Judah has suffered. Why? Because the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. So the time has come for them, as they have suffered in last, but they come back around to be in first position. Because they have truly suffered. All right. Now, with that as that out of the way, we'll come back to it. We'll revisit it later. But what I wanted to do is go back and let's go back to Matthew chapter 5. Let's read verse 5. And I'm not going to go through all of them. Maybe I may do a teaching down the road with all of the Beatitudes and to break them all down with precepts. But right now, I'm just going to stop at 5 and then we'll go on. Let's read.
It's the book of Matthew, chapter 5 and verse 5. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth.
They shall inherit the earth. The precept to that is Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 4. The book of Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 4.
Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 4. But with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth.
In other words, you're going to be reproved with equity. You're going to get back what was taken from you. You will not lose. In the end, you'll be righteously be in a strong position. Did you finish it?
No, sir.
Finish.
And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked.
Shall he slay the wicked for the things that they have done to his people. All right, from there, let's go. We'll stop at that in Matthew. We could go on. We could go on quite a bit because it goes down to verse 11 and 12. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you. But those are all the Beatitudes, and they are preceptical. They need to be precepts need to be upon precept with that for you to understand them more in depth. All right, let's go to Exodus chapter 23 and 20. Exodus 23 and 20. Exodus 23 and 20. Let's read.
Exodus chapter 23 and verse 20. Behold, I sent an angel before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared.
So it says, behold, I send you an angel. Is that right? And it says, I send you an angel before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Let's pull a precept for that. Revelation chapter 12 and 61.
Revelation chapter 12
and 16.
Revelation
12 and 6.
Revelation chapter 12 and verse 6. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God.
She has a place prepared of the
God.
So right now, we are being prepared. We're in a wilderness. We're in a place of separation. And he's preparing us here. Bringing some of us back to our right minds. Some of us are awakening to the truth. Let's go from there, if you please, to let's go back to Exodus and let's read verse 21.
Exodus chapter 23 and verse 21.
Read.
Beware of him and obey his voice.
Let's obey his voice. Go on.
Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him.
Read.
But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice.
Obey what?
Obey his voice.
Go on.
And do all that I speak.
Read.
Then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies.
Read.
And an adversary unto thine adversaries.
So I will curse them that curse you. In
God.
other words.
God.
Right? All right, good. You're still with me? Good. So from here, let's pull a precept that will explain that just a little bit more clearly for us. Let's go from there to Joshua chapter 24 and 19. The book of Joshua chapter 24 and 19. Let us read.
Joshua chapter 24 and verse 19. And Joshua said unto the people, Ye cannot serve the Lord, for he is a holy God.
He's a holy God, read.
He is a jealous God.
He's a jealous God, read.
He will not forgive your transgressions, nor your sins.
So when you transgress him, when you act out of the realms of obedience, he's going to punish you for it.
Okay.
Now remember, as his people, he will punish us, and he punishes us visibly. And he does it so that the other nations see the punishment that's been placed on us. Why is that so important? Because there can be no discrepancy. In other words, no one can argue and say, well, that's unfair. When the punishment of the nations now receive their blow. Because how are they going to turn around and say, well, he's unfair to us? Why is he doing it to us? What did we do? Well, you saw what he did to his own children, right? You see what he did for thousands of years to his own children. So do you think he would do that to his own children? Punish them like that? And then you did what you did to them? And he's not going to put some hands on you? Wow. You're not getting away with that. So let's go from there, if you please, to Deuteronomy chapter 20 and 15. Deuteronomy chapter 20 and 15. That's another precept, by the way, so that you know how to make your notes. All right, let's go.
Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 15.
Go.
Thus shalt thou do unto all the cities which are very far off from thee, which are not of the cities of these nations.
Not of the city of these nations. So what he saw him do, he's going to do. No escape. All right, let's get back on track. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 1. The book of Isaiah. Chapter what?
34, verse 1.
Let's read.
Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 1. Come near, ye nations, to hear and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it.
Read.
For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations.
Stop. What does the word indignation mean? Can someone tell me? Yes. Fury. Yes, it does, but it's a little bit more. I can't say more than that. It's just it needs to be explained a little bit more on a wider term. Yes. Hate. Yes. All right.
I was going to say a virulent, very hard anger. Just
anger. All right. So, anyone else? So we had fury, we had anger, we had hate. Go ahead. Wrath. Yes, that's good too. But let's put it plainly: destruction. Destruction. For the destruction of the Lord is upon all nations. Now you see how it reads. Because hate does not necessarily mean you do anything about it. Anger does not always mean you do something about it. But when you use the word destruction now, you're doing something about it. All right? Okay, let's go on.
Isaiah chapter 34, verse 2. For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations.
All nations, read.
And his fury upon all their armies.
And his fury, which again ties in with fury, ties in with the word wrath. Go on.
He hath utterly destroyed them.
There's the word destruction, destroyed. Then read.
He hath delivered them to the slaughter.
He hath delivered them. Now the word delivered is very interesting why he would use the word delivered. Meaning, when something's delivered, that means you can't escape it. Because you're being guided to that place.
That's right.
So he said he has delivered them to the slaughter. Let's read verse 3.
Verse 3. Their slain also shall be cast out.
Their slain shall what?
Their slain also shall be cast out.
Read.
And their stink shall come up out of their carcasses.
Read.
And the mountains shall be melted with their blood.
So all of their governments shall be destroyed with their blood. Read.
And all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together.
Let's understand that. And all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved. What does that mean? Host of heaven. Who are the hosts of heaven? Who are the hosts of heaven? Who are? No, all right. He said Israel. How can it be Israel? So, come on. All right. Don't let me make you feel like. Go on.
The heaven deals with the rulership, so those people that are in rulership shall be destroyed.
Say that one more time, please, sir.
He said the host of heaven will be dissolved, and so the people that are in the rulership of the earth at that time.
Yes, but what? Why does it say heaven? What does it mean by that?
Because back in.
So are the leadership up there?
No, not there, but yeah. Okay.
Go ahead. Oh, hold it one moment. Yes, your hand was up.
Does it mean host of angels?
No. What's throwing you is the fact that you heard the word host, and we always associate the word host with either an army or angels. No, sir. Cleo? Oh, you were going to say the same thing. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
What about the satellites and things like that?
Good. The satellites. Those are the hosts. All of the satellite instruments that they have up there in the heavens, those are the hosts. Because man has, look, I mean, I have one of those drone things. It's amazing, that little nonsense. I can fly it over and look anywhere, and I'm in the comfort of my living room, watching everything around the neighborhood, flying, you know, and even following folk. Here is my point. It has given me an extension to see and to observe, right? That's what the satellites have done to man. Man now can be in whatever country that they're in, and they can see everything that's going on in the country. In fact, it is so clear that they can literally see the man himself on the ground and pinpoint him. Now that's some serious witchcraft. Not kidding you. So, it says, let's go back and read it again.
Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 4.
Read.
And all the hosts of heaven.
All the hosts, all of their instruments that they have up there, satellites, etc., etc., etc. Remember that they have drones that can literally pick a man up.
Come.
They're thinking about using them for postage now in the future. What's Amazon is thinking about it? To deliver parcel. You'll see this spider-looking thing dropping a parcel down in front of your house and then taking off. Whoever thought? How did they think of this thing? I mean, it's just marvelous, isn't it? Devil. Anyway, go on. Let's read.
And all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved.
Shall be dissolved. Everything up there will be destroyed. Read.
And the heavens shall be rolled together.
Rolled together. So how is it going to be destroyed? Remember, when the nuclear blast takes place, everything will be wiped out. Every chemtrail that they have in the skies, everything that gives you allergies and makes it hard for you to breathe and makes your eyes water will be destroyed. When I'm going to mobile, call my friends. That day, there will be no satellites for you to do anything with. Continue, sir. Read.
As rolled together as a scroll.
Read.
And their host shall fall down.
Read.
As the leaf falleth from Salaki, off from the vine, and the Salaki, and as a falling fig from the fig tree.
Go on.
Verse 5. For my sword
watch it now, what he says.
For my sword
go on.
shall be bathed in heaven.
All right, let's deal with that word sword for a quick minute. Hold that. Go to 63, Isaiah 63 and 2. 63 and 2.
Sure.
I think. 62. Okay, read that for me, please. Let me see.
Isaiah chapter 63 and verse 2. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat?
Go on.
I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. For I will tread them in mine anger,
Read.
and trample them in my fury.
Read.
And their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment.
Right. Go from there to Isaiah 34. Go back there and read 34 and 6.
Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 6. It reads, The sword of the Lord is filled with blood.
Filled with blood. Okay, good. All right. Now, let me give you one more precept. Go to Psalm 83 and 1. Just go there real quick.
Psalms 50.
No, 83.
Okay, Psalms 83 and 1. Psalms chapter 83 and verse 1.
Read.
Keep not thou silence, O God.
Read.
Behold, not thy peace, Salaki. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God.
Read what?
Be not still, O God.
Go on.
For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head.
All right, let's go back now. Let's read Isaiah chapter 34. Let's read 5 and 6, and then we'll move on.
Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 5. For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea, and upon the people of my curse, to judgment. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood.
Filled with what?
Is filled with blood.
Read.
It is made fat with fatness, and with the blood of lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidneys of rams. For the Lord hath a sacrifice in Bozrah, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea.
Idumea. And Idumea is another word for whom? Edom. Good. All right. So he is truly soaking his sword in the destruction of the nations. Let's go to Zechariah chapter 15 and 16, please.
Zechariah 15, 16.
Go on. How are we doing, everyone? We're doing good so far? All right, good. Let's read, if you please. Have we got it? Yeah.
The book of Zechariah, chapter 14, verse 16. And it shall come to pass that every one that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the feast of tabernacles.
Go on.
Verse 17. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain.
Now, explain why is that? Dustris, why? Why is that? Why does it say there's not going to be any rain? Because read it again, sir.
Verse 17.
Read 16 and 17 again.
Zechariah chapter 14, verse 16. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations.
So everyone that is left of all the nations. So many of them are going to be destroyed. So who's left? The remnant that's left of the nations. Read.
Which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the king.
So they're going to now come year to year, and they're going to come to worship now. Go on.
The Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles.
So they're going to have to keep our holy days. Read.
Verse 17. And it shall be.
And it shall what?
And it shall be.
Read.
That whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth.
So what I want you to see is this, that even in that time, that the nations they're still going to carry hatred in their heart. Are you seeing this?
Yes, sir.
That's why you see, it's garbage when I hear it taught that, well, you know, when Yahweh Shai comes, or they say like this, when Jesus comes,
There you go.
there'll be peace all over the earth,
Come.
and there'll be no more this, no more that, blah, blah, blah. Now, the question I need to ask you is this. If that is so, then there's going to be a whole lot of unemployed evil angels flying around. Because it means if there's nothing for them to do, but that's not so. Because as you can see, in verse 17, it says, and it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even unto them shall be no rain.
Good.
So that means they will be cursed. The land will be cursed. If you get no rain, what does that mean? I said, you die because you got no water, famine, you're going to suffer. So the actions of the people will suffer, and that's why the people will be inclined to make their neighbors come and worship. Listen, I'm not going to go without food this year because you're going to starve. Come on, get yourself. We're going up to worship.
Yeah.
You see how it works now? The nations are going to get themselves together. But we will be there as well, by the way, or those of us who are called to do this, because there are some who will have to be destroyed.
Right.
Some of them will have to be destroyed, cut down, right there. You understand that so far?
Right.
So I've already given the answer away. I
Yes,
want to
sir.
get answer. See, so I've really talked too much. Okay. So let's move on from that. Isaiah chapter 60 and 12.
Isaiah 60 and 12. The book of Isaiah.
All right, go ahead.
It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 60.
Yeah, chapter 60 and 12.
Come. Chapter 60 and verse 12. For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted.
They shall be utterly wasted. Okay, answer that then. So, why must they be utterly wasted?
They're being disobedient. They don't want to follow.
They're being disobedient. They don't want to follow. Calm. All right, read on.
Verse 13. The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious.
Read.
The sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee.
Do what?
Salaki, the sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee.
Read.
And all they that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet.
Read.
And they shall call thee the city of the Lord,
Read.
the Zion of the Holy One of Israel.
Sign of the Holy One of Israel. Calm. All right. Can somebody just elucidate on that a little bit? Anyone? feel so led. Explain verse 14. Straightforward. Oh, and let me call you out then. All right. No, I usually too many times. King, why don't you give me some explanation of that?
They're basically just saying everybody that afflicted us they're gonna have to serve us and worship us. And basically they're gonna have to bow down to us like how we bow down to them.
Right. How will they have to treat us, sisters? Treat us like what? Like what? Certainly like royalty, but even more than that, they're going to treat us like what? Say it then.
Like gods.
Say it then.
Like gods.
Like gods.
God.
They will have to treat you like that. Because remember, we have treated them in times past like they were gods. Now they're going to treat you, according to the scriptures, like God. They're going to bow before you. They'll run and bend down and kiss your feet. See, that's why this is going to be such a blissful period. And it's going to be strange to many of us because it's going to be like, I've never experienced this before.
God.
Yes.
Like how they made Yahushua look like them,
Yeah.
and he was our God.
Right.
We were worshiping what looked like them.
Right. And exactly, they are going to turn and worship us in everything. Everything. And it's going to blow their minds. Hallelujah. All right. Let's go from there, if you please, to the book of Proverbs, chapter 29 and 2. Proverbs, chapter 29 and 2.
It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 29 and verse 2.
Read.
When the righteous are in authority.
See, so now when we are in a position of authority, watch this now.
The people rejoice.
The people what?
The people rejoice.
People will rejoice. Go on.
But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn.
So when the wicked are ruling, the people mourn. But not just the people, but who else mourns? Huh? The animals mourn. The earth mourns. The trees mourn. Everything mourns. And you would think, wow, how is that? Because remember, half of the earth now has been destroyed. Look what they're doing to the Amazon.
That's right.
Why? Could I want to build some commercial thing there? Give me a break. And here's the thing, that they are burning and destroying the wood, not even using it to build anything.
Okay.
The people who are in those countries don't even have homes, and they live in shacks, and they're cutting down the wood and burning the wood.
Okay.
What sense does that make? That shows you how evil and wicked Edom is. All right. Let's jump ahead. Let's go to Acts chapter 2 and 25. Acts 2 and 25. Acts chapter 2 and 25. Let's read.
It's the book of Acts, chapter 2 and verse 25.
Read.
For David speaketh concerning him, I foresaw the Lord always before my face.
Read.
For he is on my right hand.
He's where?
He is on my right hand,
Read.
that I should not be moved.
Cannot be moved. Read.
Therefore did my heart rejoice, and my tongue was glad. Moreover also my flesh shall rest in hope.
Read.
Because thou wilt not leave my soul in hell.
You'll not leave us in this hell that we're in. Read.
Neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption.
Read.
Thou hast made known to me the ways of life.
Read.
Thou shalt make me full of joy with thy countenance.
With thy countenance. And this word is what makes us full of joy. Go on. All right. Now let's, if you please, look at the curses for Israel. Let's go to Luke 21. 21 and 24. Let's deal with this.
It's the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 24.
Read.
And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations.
Now, this is, have you finished that verse there?
No, sir.
All right. So this is dealing with transatlantic slave. It's also dealing with the sub-Saharan slave trade. So it's two slave trades it's dealing with. The sub-Saharan is dealing with the African trade by the Arabs. Because although we speak a lot about the transatlantic, which is moving us from one part of the earth to another part, we also must remember that the other part is with those who took our people, was in Africa, and made them slaves and castrated them. Most of the men were castrated because, again, they did not want Israel to reproduce.
That's right.
It's a terrible situation we have there. So those nations will go through the same destruction. They will be castrated. And you say, well, really? Yes, they will. They will be brought low in that regard.
Right.
And these are those who were of the Arabs. They were the ones who did that to us at that time. Read on, if you please.
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles.
Jerusalem shall be what?
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles.
Of the Gentiles. Go on.
Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Till the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So this is the scattering of us. Now remember, I need someone to explain very briefly, because it's a big subject in itself, I want to explain very briefly what took place with the transatlantic slave trade. What was the purpose behind it? For those who don't understand it, let's give some understanding. Anyone? I see a show of hands. Okay. Frank, you understand that? You know the history there?
The slaves that were brought to America from West Africa.
All right, they were brought to
And
America
yes.
from West Africa. Now let's answer that so you understand. It was not just West Africa. West Africa was the main section where they were brought, because that was considered to be the Gold Coast, and not only that, the kingdom of Judah is in that area. Negro land is in that area too.
Yeah, right.
And so all those things existed in that area. But they took us from over on the east side, as well as the northern, and as well as what they call the southern. Now, bear this in mind, and this is just by the by. The truth is that what they call southern is really the other way up, because the maps that we've been given have been given the wrong way around. We've always been taught that southern is down. It's not. Southern is up. Because when you read the scriptures, especially in the book of Genesis, you'll hear where they say, and we will go up to Egypt, you see. So, but when you look on the map, it looks like they're coming down to Egypt. So the scriptures don't lie. And as I was sharing with the brothers just last night, that there are two sections of the scripture that you can almost hold as being your true points. The Torah is key, because you'll find the information in there is absolutely straightforward. The second part that has not been messed with is the red letter, the things that Yahushua has said. So the red letter and the Torah are true points. The Tanakh has been messed with a little bit, and so has some of the New Testament. All right, but it doesn't mean that the whole thing has been corrupted. All right. So who else can give me some add to what? Explain some of the things about the transatlantic slave. Just share what you can. I just need to know what you know. Yes, go ahead, please.
I don't know if this is according to Deuteronomy 28. It says, "For if we do certain things of obedience, he would do this for us.
Right.
If we were disobedient, we would suffer some of these things.
Come on. Yes. So, in Deuteronomy 28, it lists a whole number of curses that would happen to us if we fail to be obedient to his word. Good. And one could take it further than that. Bless those that bless thee, and curse those that curse thee. So, can anyone take it a little bit further?
Well, it's just fulfilling the prophecy.
Explain.
The Atlantic slave trade, like she said, in Deuteronomy 1, it told us if we do what he said do, we'll be blessed. In 15, we mentioned all the curses, and then you have to go to 68. So the Atlantic slave trade, we're dealing with mostly verse 68 to bring us over here. We just fulfilling the prophecy.
Can't. However, I need someone just to break it down a little bit. Just condense it, explain what happened. Yes, you have to speak a little bit louder for me. I'm getting deaf in my old age.
The Atlantic slave trade, I think of the Atlantic Ocean, and to get to America, they had to cross the Atlantic Ocean by ship.
Yes, that's true. Let me repeat what you said for those who are not hearing you. It is basically called the Atlantic slave trade because they had to cross the Atlantic to get to the Americas. Go on. Is that it? Yeah. I'm sorry, my sister. Please tell me your name again. I forgot it momentarily. Just so that I'm. Sarah. Yes. You see, that's silly of me because it's Abraham's wife. Now go ahead. Say that one more time.
The Atlantic slave trade was like to split up families. So like when they brought them over here, they like split people up between like fathers and mothers and babies were like splitting them. Like how they're doing now.
Yes.
With, like people from Mexico, they're putting them into concentration camps.
Yes.
That's what was happening in like the Atlantic slave trade. They were taking young boys from their mothers and putting them on slave ships and like having all the boys go to one place and having all the girls go to another.
Go on. Yes. So they were bringing. So what happened in the transatlantic slave trade, where they brought people over, and remember, the majority of the people that they brought were young men and women. You know, don't think that they captured everybody. They didn't. Some of the older men and older women, they weren't interested in those. When you're getting stock, do you capture the old stock or do you capture the young? The young, of course you do. So when they brought them over, as you rightly said, that they separated the daughters or the women from the men, and even those who had children from their children, completely split them up. So mothers never saw their children again. Fathers never saw their children again. Brothers never saw their sisters, and sisters never saw their brothers. That is the height of trauma. And then they've got the nerve to talk about soldiers having PTSD, not realizing that we have PTSD. We have the real PTSD.
That's right.
But ours is so infectious that it affects the person, that even the man's seed, when delivering seed to his woman, that seed carries the threat in it and the fear in it, and it's passed on generationally. So let's just break it down a little bit. People who were already in the Americas were our people. Can't. They were not red Indians. They were not people who look like Eskimos. There were people that were dark-skinned people, male and female. And they brought the slaves over as a part of a ruse to trick and to change history. Please make note or understand what I'm saying, because I need you to explain that down the road. And when they brought them over, they allowed them to operate as slaves, and even the people that were here fooled them into taking some of their own people as slaves. Then they took some of the people who were already here back to Europe, and then took those people over to Africa, and then brought them again back to the Americas. You see how dangerous this enemy is? He's playing the long game and taking the people and mixing them up that they don't even know who they are and where they're from. So we've been truly destroyed as a nation of people. The key that we have to understand is that this was done because it was part of our curse. Let's go to Isaiah. In fact, go to Luke chapter 21 verse, and read verse 22 now.
It's the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 22.
Read.
For these be the days of vengeance.
These be the days of vengeance. Read.
That all things which are written may be fulfilled.
So everything that has been written is going to be fulfilled.
Okay.
Have you finished?
Yes, sir.
Go now to James 1:1. Because even in that day, there were some of us who were still scattered before 70 AD.
That's right.
Go on.
Book of James, chapter 1, verse 1.
Go ahead.
James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting.
So the 12 tribes, he makes it clear that they've been scattered abroad. See that? Yes, ma'am.
When they brought the slaves from
Africa,
brought them here,
brought them here to the Americas.
to mix them. When they brought them here, they brought them here to those people that were here. They were part of the northern kingdoms, right?
The ones who were here were the northern kingdoms.
So they were mixing the northern kingdom with
Judah.
With Judah.
Right.
Right.
Because Judah, now the reason why, and that's why you might understand why I'm pushing this. I'm really not pushing it because I want to confuse you. I'm not that clever. I'm pushing it because I truly want you to understand the history, even if it's at the basic level, so that you can explain. Because most of our people, you ask them, they say transatlantic slave. All right, what does that mean? Give me more. So what they did, they brought them over from the Americas. They brought them here, and who did they bring over? It was Judah. Now, who does Judah comprise of? Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, right? So when you hear the term Jew, it is always significant to Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Now, were there some people from the northern kingdom still in Jerusalem at 70 AD? Yes, because not all of them went. Some of them made their way back to Jerusalem. Can't? And you'll read that in the book of Acts. It tells you that. It gives you the explanation. But they took them from from Africa to the Americas and mixed them in a little bit. But also the purpose behind that down the road was to be able to change their identity. That's why in the 1912, 1915 of the last century, there were this man, and I won't mention his name at this point because I'm going to teach on it. He destroyed all the records of those who were brought over on the slave ships whose names were in the manifesto. But also, what also did he destroy? He destroyed all the names of the nations that were already here in the Americas. And he pushed that all those who were called Indians would now be called Negroes and be called African American. That's where that term hailed from. There's a lot of things in our history, ladies and gentlemen, that we've not been taught. And that's why there's confusion among us, because You weren't taught it in schools, so you're finding this out now, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years later. It's thrown you out of balance to some degree. See that? Yes, sir.
Pastor, with the slave trade that happened, and they brought the Israelites here from the northern kingdom, you say, and then after 1600 past 18 and all up into the 1900, after the civil rights, was that the time for us to come into the truth? Because we like to think that this country would never let anybody take it over, but you think that was the time for us to come into the truth?
During the late...
Instead of going to the civil rights?
Well, the civil rights, truthfully, didn't really start to take place until much later. The nucleus of it began back in the early 1900s. The nucleus of it, and with people who were challengers of black people, such as Marcus Garvey. He was one of those. Now, before Marcus Garvey, there was Douglas and his band, and he was trying to cause people to think outside of slavery, think bigger. But the oppression of slavery was so great that it had a chain on their minds and on their spirit. Marcus Garvey came along, a Benjamite, and he was trying to get people to take on their own ownership of businesses. Remember, back then, in the early turn of the century, they had bus companies, freight companies. They started to buy hotels. But when they saw him starting to do all those things, they pushed the powers that be then, because the FBI wasn't around then, but the powers that be came together and pushed to get him out. And eventually they brought all sorts of accusations against him. They got him out of the country, and then eventually they got him to England, and then they killed him. Now, that's just a short synopsis because it's way too detailed to cover at this point. But here's the point that I guess I'm trying to get you to understand, is that much of the history of so-called black people has been marred in lies. That's why we don't know who we are unless we get into the truth. Now, people are thinking, well, we just need to know our history. No, we don't. We need to know who we are according to the scriptures, because we are the people of the book first. Everything else is secondary. Because you, look how long it takes people to understand that you're Israel. And how you have to really, it's like I'm trying to, here's my brother, brother, you know who you are? Brother, you know who you are? I'm doing that, and he's fighting me against something. Back there, I'm getting a little bit confused. Now, what's happened is that the brother is fighting me because his challenges, he's already accepted who he is as a so-called black person, and that's it. And he's not that, he's more than that.
That's right.
You see, so we're struggling with a whole lot of history that has never been properly explained. Now, to get back to the main point, I guess is simply this. That as the people of God, Deuteronomy 4:27. Let's see if we can explain this a little bit.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4 and verse 27.
Read.
And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations.
So he'll do what?
And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations.
Go on.
And ye shall be left few in number.
Hold it. He said, and you shall be left how in number?
Few in number.
Few in number. Go on.
Among the heathen.
Among the nations. Go on.
Whither the Lord shall lead you.
Where he has led you. Now, you see, the scriptures is telling you. That's why I keep saying you've got to keep going back to the book. Because our history begins here first. But you have been taught you are not the people of the book, so your history is outside of the book. And then, how do you trace your history? Because if they took you out of a country where your history is being cut off, How do you trace back? So who am I? Am I Kenyan? Am I Mozambican? Am I what? I don't know who I am because you cut me off by taking me out. And then here's the thing: the people who were here, they moved in a bunch of people from Alaska who were let me use a kind word. Okay, they moved in some people from Alaska, and they made them to be us in the Americas, and slowly pushed that narrative until so-called dark-skinned people, black-skinned people, no longer see themselves as being the original Americans of America. And in its truest form, you will see our people in South America. How is it that most of the countries down there, most of the people, 80 to 90% of the people down there look like you and I. Yet every film you see, they all look like Esau. You never see when you go to Paraguay. Paraguay is a black country. Guess what you see? White people. When you go to Colombia, guess what you see? White people. And most of the people there are black people. Venezuela, Argentina, they are all people who are black people, but when they show films or whatever, they are white people. Now, one would say, well, it's not all, the simpleton Negro, it's not about black and white. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. If it wasn't, Yahushua, color would not be in the scriptures.
That's right.
If it was not about color, then why have you hit it so well over the years? Why does Jeremiah speak about color? You see? So he says clearly, I will bless them that bless you and curse them that curse you. And they have cursed us by taking away our color, our identity, our history, our language, and everything else. So when we see this now, we begin to get a different understanding. Numbers 23 and 23, please. Numbers 23 and 23, please.
The book of Numbers, chapter 23 and verse 23.
Read.
Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob.
Read it again.
Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob.
Go on.
Neither is there any divination against Israel. According to this time, it shall be said of Jacob and of Israel.
Go on.
What have God wrought?
What have God wrought? Go to Numbers 24 and 1.
Numbers chapter 24 and verse 1.
Read.
And when Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he went not, as at other times, to seek for enchantment, but he sent his face toward the wilderness.
What?
Toward the wilderness.
Go on.
Verse 2. And Balaam lifted up his eyes, and he saw Israel abiding in his tents, according to their tribes. And the Spirit of God came upon him.
Go on.
And he took up his parable, and said, Balaam, the son of Beor, have said, and the man whose eyes are open have said, and he have said, which heard the words of God, which saw the vision of the Almighty, failing into a trance,
Read.
but having his eyes open.
Eyes wide open. Go on.
How goodly.
And by the way, the eyes wide open, that's significant, but we'll deal with it on another occasion. But go on.
How goodly are thy tents, O Jacob, and thy tabernacles, O Israel.
In other words, the nations have made it their job to want to curse Israel on every hand. They've made it their occupation. Why is it that they're giving X amount of $1 billion to Israel over there now? And that's given, by the way, every year. And the real Jews are in pauperdom in the Americas. How are they getting away with that? It's because they've done such a good job of making you believe you are not who you are.
That's right.
I mean, the so-called Mexicans think that when you say Mexican, you think when you say Mexican, you think that is a real Mexican. That's not a real Mexican. The real Mexican look like this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now you say, well, it's not about color. Okay, well, let's move on. Right, let's read a little bit more. Read.
Verse 6. As the valleys are they spread forth, as gardens by the river's side.
So it's telling you how great as the valleys are spread forth, as the gardens by the riversides, as the trees. Oh, read on.
As the trees of Salaki, of lying aloes, which the Lord hath planted, and as cedar trees beside the waters.
So we are like the trees that bow over into the waters. We are so numerous and so abundant as a nation, and we are everywhere, everywhere. Go on.
Verse 7. He shall pour the water out of his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters.
In many waters. Go on.
And his king shall be higher than Agag. And his
higher than Agag is because he was a giant, meaning that we are going to be greater people of stature. Continue.
And his kingdom shall be exalted.
Read.
God brought him forth out of Egypt.
Read.
He have as it were the strength of a unicorn.
Read.
He shall.
When it says strength of a unicorn, it's speaking about a rhinoceros.
That's right.
Because many of us, when we read the word unicorn, we think it's a horse with a thing in it. No, it's a rhinoceros. A rhinoceros is like a tank, you know, and it cannot be stopped because it's just too much power behind it. Go on.
He shall eat up the nations, his enemies, and shall break their bones.
Read.
And pierce them through with his arrows.
Read.
He crouched, he lay down as a lion, and as a great lion, who shall stir him up? Blessed is he that blessed thee, and cursed is he that curseth thee.
There it is. I said, drop the mic moment.
God. I like that thing.
Yeah, that's it. Because it makes it very clear. Bless them that bless, and curse them that curse. That's why when the nations come, and they try to curse us, they don't realize their cursing becomes our blessing.
Double.
Because what's happened is that as they have, go to Revelations, find that. So as they're cursing us, they don't realize that they are multiplying unto themselves the destruction that is yet to come. Let's read it, Doctor.
It's the book of Revelation, chapter 18 and verse 6. Reward her, even as she rewarded you.
So we're going to reward the nations even as they rewarded us. Read.
And double unto her.
And they're going to get double for their trouble. Go.
Double according to her works.
Read.
In the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double.
So she filled the cup, and the cup that they used to be filled to pour on us is the same cup that's now going to be used, but a doubler portion back on them. So, all right. Any questions? I'm finished here. And I approve this message.
Yeah. I was a drop the mic because it ended with the name of it.
Yes.
You know, I should have brought this up earlier, but I couldn't remember what I wanted to say. But I've been thinking about the fires in Australia,
Yes.
and I've been thinking about all the Aborigines that are out in the outback.
Yes.
They never talk about them getting burned out.
Right.
Or their homes destroyed.
Right.
Or them displaced, or even what's gonna happen to them.
Right.
So I just pray for them.
Yes, because remember, they have been plagued and they have been trampled, just like we have all over the world. And again, it's going to be interesting to see how the Most High turns that around in the future. Because to think how badly they have been treated, something is going to come back to really bring these people, bring them straight.
But
I think To get them off the land.
All of the fires that were caused was to drive them out. Remember, they did the same thing in what's that island near New Zealand? It begins with H. It's not Haiti. Anyway, it's an island out there. It's along with the Solomon Islands and all of those. These people, what they did, they drove the people off the land. And when you look at these people, they look just like you and I.
That's it.
And they didn't want them to have the land, but they'd lived there for hundreds of years. Their bones are on the land. Their traditional traditions have been passed on and buried on that land. But yet still, they now see the land as being real estate gold. And they see that there is a tourism market that requires of them to build certain types of things so they can buy other Idumeans from around the world to come and spend their money there, and they make money from it. Look, when you go to islands like Jamaica, Trinidad, and all of those, when you go there, and the hotels you stay in, one would have thought that these are hotels that are owned by the people who live in the islands. None of them own any of the hotels. When you look, the majority of them are Spaniards. You see? And those God-forsaken people are going to be destroyed down the road. Because how can you go there? And then when you look around where the hotels normally are, it's like a shanty town around.
That's true.
And then the people, you go to Dominica, you see the same thing. And here's the sad thing is that they come and they live in splendor, even in the few days that they're there. And then the people who are living there, they're living in hell, looking into heaven.
Yes.
That's why, according to the scriptures, their hell that's going to come is going to be our heaven. Because we will be able to look at them in their squalor, and the scripture says that we will laugh at them. Now you see, they don't teach that in Christianity because you shouldn't laugh at their despair. You want a man? Just give me the opportunity, because they have been laughing at you. And those people who are living in certain upscale areas, even within the community that we're in right now, they laugh at others who live in the downtrodden areas, and they don't care.
That's right.
But yet, when they want something, by the way, they will get in their cars and they'll go to where you are in the so-called ghetto. Because they know where to go and get what they need.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to the presidential vote, they know where to go and find you.
Sure do.
But after they're in office, they don't give a hoot who you are, where you are.
Yeah, I'm going to add to what she was saying, because I spoke about it about 5 weeks ago, that some of the people there, the Aborigines, are not being affected because of the method they use there, and they don't want to use that method because it costs too much money. I mentioned about 5 weeks ago. They're okay. They're okay. I don't want to say all of them, but they know how to go, when to move, the fires and things like that. So God, from the Most High, protecting His people.
Anyone else? Feel free at this time. Well, we'd be done, so you can ask any question. Any questions online? If there's any questions online, I'll take those questions too. But we are a downtrodden people. No doubt about it.
Definitely.
All right. Yes, go ahead.
I was back when we were talking about the transatlantic slave trade, and we brought up Deuteronomy 28.
Yes.
I was drawn to that scripture in 48 because it talks about how it used the Edom and those other nations to scourge us and to punish us.
Let's go there. Quote it again.
48. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 48.
48 and 49.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far.
By the way, is the yoke of iron still there?
Yes.
Of course it's still there.
Yep.
It's now a mental yoke of iron. Go on.
From the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nations whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
You see, and this is why when the Most High comes, you see all the names that all the nations have called themselves now? They call themselves this nation. You know, Chinese call themselves Chinese, and Japanese call themselves Japanese, and Germans call themselves Germans, and French call themselves French. All of those names, by the way, will disappear. Why? The Most High is going to go back to calling you what the scriptures call you. You are Moab and you are Ammon. It's going to go back to calling you who you are. Because there's no distinction. No distinction. See? And this is why the scripture says that the angels will say to the children, come up higher. Now, by the way, when the angels say that, here's something for you to bear in mind. They're not going to they won't be speaking to you in English. Come up higher. No, they won't be saying that. They're going to be speaking to you in Hebrew, and you will know Hebrew. You will know it. There's no, oh, I'm going to go back to school. No school. You will know it. Any other questions? Yes.
When you were talking about the Eskimos were here and they were made to look like what we now call Native Americans, what's the history of how they got to the Americas or how they got here?
Oh, well, they were brought down. They were brought down by the British.
Was it by force?
They were encouraged to come and take ownership of land. The same thing, let me give you maybe a good example would be this. When they wanted, when the Portuguese first took over Brazil, they recognized that this was a rich continent and the people were flourishing. But yet, they owned it because the term Brazil, it's a Portuguese name. It's not, what you think. So, what did they do? They put out a bulletin throughout Portugal, which was said, we will pay you to go to Brazil and to mate with the Brazilians and to take possessions of their land. So what did they do? They came over and they were given portions of land, by the way, and they were given certain monies. They didn't pay for their fare to go over, they were taken there. And so what happened? In a few hundred years, what did they do? They turned it around in such a way that the people who were so-called black Brazilians no longer was in a power position. Remember, it is one of the, outside of Africa, is one of the biggest black countries on the planet. Yet, none of its structure of power has anyone that is black in major leadership position. They are all Portuguese. They're all from there. So that's what they did to change the dynamics of Brazil. Now, what did they do with the Americas? They got the Mongols and they gave them certain rights that they would come down and gave them free passage to come through what they call the Barren Straits and to come all the way down from Canada to come and proliferated themselves throughout the Americas and to take possession and become the nations that were of the tribes at that time. The majority of the people, and that's why I said, I can't wait to be able to set this up and show you. When I show, I'm going to show you a good comparison. And we're going to spend most of the time just showing pictures after pictures after pictures and hitting with some scriptures. And you'll see how some of the people, going all the way back to the Cherokee, and you'll see what a Cherokee looks like, the original Cherokee looks like, and then you'll see the mongrel version of it. Right. You will see, what are your descendants?
We're Choctaw.
Say it again?
Choctaw.
Chateau, okay. So again, you're going to see how, because I will show you a lot. I'll show you the Floridians, Indians.
Seminole.
What, there's more than that down.
Right, right.
You're going to see, there's also called Chip or something or another. You're going to see all of them. And when you see the Navajos and you see the Blackfoot, you'll see the originals, and then you'll see the mongrels. And when you see it, you will say to yourself, now I understand. Why do you think one of the greatest cowboys in the history of America, who they took the story of the Lone Ranger from, when he escaped slavery and went into the land, why was he able to mix in with them? Because he looked like them. His wife came from them. His wife looked like a black woman. But she was called an Indian. See? So all of these things, and they dare not teach this because they teach us in the schools. Changes. Look, every now and then when we're at camp, we get some kids who walk up to us and say, oh, but we know about that. Oh, yeah. These are the kids. We're not talking about the adults now. The kids walk up and say, oh, we know about that because someone had dared to teach them some of the things that we have on display. But they're not going to teach it to everyone. You see, so it is intriguing to see that we're living in an age where Esau is being exposed and they don't like it. That's why they call us black extremists. But you know what? The first black extremist was Yahushua himself. And nobody was no more extreme than him. So all we're doing is following in his footsteps. Any other questions from anyone else? Yes, go ahead, please.
Is Job a similitude parable for the tribe of Israel? The whole conglomerate of the tribe of Israel? Is it like that whole book of Job, a synopsis of them being in high stature and then being brought down super low?
Come. Let's go to Job 1:1. Job 1:1. Now let's begin reading at verse 1.
It's the book of Job, chapter 1 and verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. And his sons went and feasted in their houses, every one his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned, and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. Now,
and why did he do that, ladies and gentlemen?
Wasn't that during the time of the sacrificial redemption for sins in some ways? Wasn't that still part of that time period?
Well, bear in mind that Job is one of the oldest books in the scriptures. Oh, and also bear this in mind, that Job, it said that he would do a sacrifice. Job would do sacrifice for his children and give a burnt offering. So he was under the law. So he knew that the law had to be maintained, but he knew through the through the rebellions of his children, that they may allow themselves through drink and feasting, that they could go off and say things that they should not have said, and thus curse the Most High God and put themselves in trouble. So as a father, he went and he would create a sacrifice for them to help them. But the truth is that they should do the sacrifices themselves. All right? Well, let's go on. One moment. Go on.
Verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them.
And Satan came also among them. Now, what does that mean? Satan came also among them. But this is speaking about the council of angels, because there's a period where all the angels have to give an account. So when people think that I don't have to give, listen, if the angels have to give an account, sure enough, you have to give an account too. And what this is speaking about is a council of angels. Because it said, and now there was a day when the sons of God. Now, remember what I said to you, that there in the rest of the Tanakh, there are words that have been changed. You will find that where they use the words children of Israel, you will find, for the most part, that word children of Israel was not used throughout. The word was used the sons of Israel. They changed it to the children of Israel. Now there are some where it uses the word children, but for the most part it was using the word sons. Why? Because all men must be face their responsibility for their families. All men. In other words, if my father died and I happen to be the oldest of my family, I, as the man of my family, my mother even comes under me, meaning I have to protect and make sure that she's provided for. Sons did that. But because the scripture's not being taught correctly, what we have is people losing their positions as to how they're meant to act. Sons are meant to look after their mother and their family. They're meant to do that. And if they, by the way, if you have the heart to do it, the Most High will provide the means for you to do it. When you don't have the heart, He's not going to provide the means because you will go and squander it. The scriptures teaches us these things, these parallels, and we miss it. Because again, in Christianity, they're not teaching the whole truth and nothing but the truth. They're not doing that. So, in order to then prove the point that this is the council of angels, and then it said, and Satan came also among them. Go to Daniel chapter 7 and 10. Now, I will finish in a minute, but that's okay. You know me already, right? Okay, just put that out there.
It's the book of Daniel, chapter 7 and verse 10.
Go on.
A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him.
Read.
Thousands ministered unto him.
Thousands. So these are all the angels. Now remember, it uses the word thousand. We discussed that last night.
Yes, sir.
We can't say that really. The scripture only used to give you an idea because as humans, we understand numbers and figures. Mm-hmm. There is no figure, there is no number that can number. There's no machine, no computer, there is no number in the language, whatever language you speak, that can utter a number that can encompass all of the angels of the Most High God. There is none. There is none. That's why the nonsenses that we were taught about Satan came and took 1/3 of the angels. All that. Look, I used to teach it, so I put my hand up. I understand. I had to teach it, and I was indoctrinated with it. But when the fullness of time came, and you get wisdom. Wisdom is a principal thing. So in all that get understand. Once you got it now, move on from it.
That's right.
And so here we see, read on now, sir.
Daniel chapter 7, verse 10. The fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands
Gone.
ministered unto him.
Ministered unto him.
And 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him.
So it's using it as an example to give you an idea. But the number of the angels, you could never count them because a number does not exist for you to get to the bottom of it. It doesn't exist. The scripture says this: they are innumerable. So you don't have the ability to do it. And when men start teaching all of this, it comes from Roman Catholicism. Go on, sir. Finish it.
Before him, the judgment was set, and the books were open.
And the books were open. So that's a gathering of the council of angels right there. That's to help you understand. All right. So just to jump down real quick, just to answer your question, let's jump to verse. Let's jump to verse 8.
Job chapter 1 and verse 8. And the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job?
So now you're seeing the Most High, for want of a better word, make a bet against his servant Job, saying, there's nothing you could do to turn this man from me. See, that's the confidence that the Most High wants to have towards us. And that's the confidence he wants to have to Israel, his firstborn, towards us. So then, to tie that up, go to Sirach chapter 2 and 1 real quick, please.
Sirach chapter 2 and verse 1. Read. My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation.
So he's letting you know that when you come to serve him, be prepared for disaster. It's coming. And it's coming in boatloads. And when it comes, you have to have a made-up mind that regardless of what comes, I'm still going to stand for him, and this is not going to dissuade me from knowing who I am. Finish it, sir.
Prepare thy soul for temptation. Set thy heart aright, and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble.
See? So you've got to, it's telling us, you must constantly endure. Constantly endure. Now, don't forget your question, mind. I just don't want to lose my train of thought. And so here is the key now. We, as a people of God, we have always been put in a position of challenge. And yes, Job's situation there is to remind us that we are always in a position of challenge, because we are like we're like the sons. Malachi chapter 4. Malachi chapter 4. Malachi chapter 4. Begin at verse 1 for me, please. In fact, begin Malachi chapter Malachi chapter 3. Begin at verse 2.
Malachi chapter 3 and verse 2. But who made Salaki?
Begin at verse 1 and
yes,
then and go on, because it makes sense.
Malachi chapter 3 and verse 1. Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me.
That's John the Baptist, incidentally. Go on.
And the Lord, whom ye seek, shall suddenly come to his temple.
Yahushua, go on.
Even the messenger of the covenant, whom ye delight in. Behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts.
Watch this now, go on.
But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like fuller's soap.
Read.
And he shall sit as a refiner, and purifier of silver. And he shall purify the sons of Levi.
The sons of Levi. So we, as the children of the Most High, we are being purified. Therefore, and how do you purify something? If you have a wound and you got no needle and thread, you get fire, right? So for us to get out the stuff that is in us, we have to go through the fire. And we've been going through it for thousands of years. Because he wants us to be perfect. At the end of the perfected number of 7, we come into that age. Here is the thing, that we will stand like Yahushua himself, and we will have the word of the law in us. We will have the power of the physicality that was meant to be on us, and we will be the greatest nation on the earth, barring none. Because we will go through the fire, and no one will be able to turn to you and say, well, how did you get up? What do you mean, how? Let me take you back a couple of 1,000 years. That's how we've been through it. Con? All right. I'm long-winded, but still. That's all right.
What? She mentioned Job, and I was going to say that his sons were killed. That's what I've read.
Yeah, I don't want to distract from the main part.
But they killed because I think it was killed, but they were celebrating birthday. Because I think it's only
no, it doesn't say birthday.
No, it don't. But I thought it was
no.
3. Okay.
No. Oh, we must never put in what is not there. They've already done enough job of putting that stuff in that shouldn't be there, so we don't add to it.
Wow.
They were celebrating, but at the time, they may have been celebrating and allowed themselves to get too intoxicated. And when you're drunk, you say things that you shouldn't say. So he was ensuring that they were covered by his sacrifice.
So when they said that,
but to answer your question, were they righteous? Well, we know they weren't righteous. How do we know that? Malik, tell me why.
Know that they wasn't righteous?
Yeah.
They wasn't keeping the law.
Well, how do we know that they weren't? Dusterous, tell me why.
Okay, in that case, when his father was the father was doing an offering for them, or
Nope. Window.
Because they weren't the ones, they should have did the sacrifices themselves, and they didn't.
But how do we know that they were? How do we know that they were not right? The book tells us. Because they were all killed.
Oh yeah, that's right. They were judged.
They were judged, exactly. If they were righteous, would he have killed them? No. They were unrighteous, so yes, they were killed. So what Job was doing was only sparing them, but the truth is, they were going to be destroyed anyway. And that's why, even though it grieved Job, he knew that they were under the hand of the Lord for that. All right, we can stop that. Any other questions?
That's a similitude also for the 2/3.
I'm sorry?
I mean, that's like the 2/3 in a way.
What?
The sons and daughters.
The sons and daughters?
Not quite. Okay.
That's a bit of a stretch.
So another part of that, I was wondering later on when it talked about Job's friends.
Yeah.
I found that interesting too because some of his friends were Edom and Amalek and all. So maybe when you can do a teaching on this, Job.
Yeah, we will go into that. I did a teaching on that some time ago, but yeah, we can do that. We can revisit that. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? All right. To those online, I hope that you enjoyed the teaching today. I hope that it's been a blessing to you. I pray that you continue to support this ministry with your offerings and with your tithe or whatever you are led by your Spirit to give to support this ministry. We are able to do what we do and to broadcast to you by the offerings that you will actually give to this ministry. We thank you again for those that give, and for those that don't, we also thank you again. We pray that the Most High will bless you and that in the future you'll be able to do likewise. On behalf of myself and Officer Dwayne, and on the behalf of this ministry here in Houston, Texas, we'd like to say to you, Barakatah Yahweh, Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Salam.